Welcome everybody to a brand new video. Before I get into today's topic, I just want to mention really quickly, I'm not a financial advisor, so anything you hear in this video should not be taken as gospel. If you want financial advice, consult a financial expert. That's pretty much the entire disclaimer. Let's get into it. So today I want to talk about a recent piece of news that a lot of people seem to be really freaking out about. This is going to be another video where I'm going to be talking about the stock market. I'm going to be talking about, wealth building and such. But recently we got some news that Warren Buffett decided to sell 18% of his shares in Delta Airlines. And Delta Airlines is actually a company that I am currently invested in. I have put in a decent amount of my overall savings into Delta Airlines. I invested in Delta Airlines because I felt like they were a very good company and that they were undervalued at this current point in time with the whole, coronavirus stock market crash sort of thing. Airline companies are getting hit very, very hard because air travel is pretty much shut down at this current point in time globally. There's not many airlines at the moment that are, flying. So as a result, pretty much all airline companies are getting hit very, very hard. And Delta Airlines just happens to be one of them. And it is a company that I invested in because, as I said, I felt the value of the company was below what I felt the company was actually worth. They also had a very attractive dividend. I felt like, now was time to start buying the company. And I still have other buy orders ready for if the stock price comes down even harder. If it does go that low, then great, I buy more of the company. If it just goes up from here, well then that's great too. Regardless, I think Delta Airlines are a really great company, but Warren Buffett decided to sell 18% of his share in the company, which is leading a lot of people to freak out. And initially, I'm not going to lie, this kind of did spook me a little bit because initially looking at the news, I just looked at the total sum of his sell. I didn't look at the percentage. And so this kind of did worry me a little bit because I was thinking to myself, if Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, decided to sell his share in the company, which is very odd because he only recently purchased shares of the company and said that he wasn't going to sell because, he just thought the company was going to, do really well during this time. If he's selling it, does that mean that there is something going wrong with the company? Does that mean that we need to panic and that we need to follow in his footsteps and sell our shares as well? Is there something behind the scenes with Delta Airlines that indicates that we should be worried and that this company is going to go bankrupt? Of course, there are some things. One of them is that if you look at their balance sheet, you will notice that Delta Airlines has more current liabilities than they have current assets, which is a bit of a problem because if they cannot pay off their debts, which current liabilities are debts that they have to pay within this year, if they're not able to pay off those debts, the company will have to file for bankruptcy. And if they can't pay off those debts with the amount of money that they have currently, which they don't have enough money currently on hand to pay off those debts, that could mean really bad things for the company. Even if they were to sell off all of their current assets, they still do not have enough money to pay off their debts, which is, reason to be worried. It may very well mean that Delta Airlines could go bankrupt this year. That is absolutely a possibility, and it's something that I have to face as a reality. It's very possible that whatever money I've invested in Delta Airlines, the company goes bankrupt and I lose all of my money. That is, that is something that does worry me, but I would much rather hold on to a stock until the company goes bankrupt rather than sell it at a loss. I don't know, maybe I'm just stubborn. Perhaps that's a positive trait as an investor. I just don't want to sell anything at a loss. But at the same time, if the company is absolutely 100% going to go bankrupt, that could hurt me because, I could, just cut my losses early. And you guys might be thinking, well, if you look at the balance sheet and they owe more money than they are currently bringing in, it's estimated that they're losing about $60 million every single day that they are not operating. You might think to yourself, the company looks like it's going to go bankrupt, so why wouldn't you sell? Why wouldn't you follow in the same footsteps as Warren Buffett? And I have my reasoning. Reason number one is that Delta Airlines have actually gone bankrupt before. They have had a situation in the past, I believe it was in 2005, where they did file for bankruptcy and they managed to recover from that. If we do get to the point where Delta Airlines does go bankrupt, I feel like the company will be able to, get back up on its feet. It's going to be very difficult, but absolutely I feel that they are a good enough company to be able to do that. Reason number two, A lot of companies right now, big companies in the US, are getting huge bailouts. I personally feel like Delta Airlines is going to be one of those companies that does get a pretty nice bailout from the US government. Yes, bailouts are controversial in their own way, but I do feel like Delta Airlines is going to get a bailout because they bring in enough money into the US economy. They are a pretty big airline company. They are very important to the economy. They bring in a lot of money for the government in terms of, taxable income and such. It is in the government's best interest to make sure that they bail this company out and that the company stays afloat. So that is a big reason why I personally feel like Delta Airlines are going to get through this struggle. It's going to be hard, and yes, they might have to reduce their dividend or cut their dividend entirely, but I still feel like in the long term, Delta Airlines are going to be fine. Right now, yes, it's very uncertain, and I could be completely wrong about everything. Maybe Delta Airlines goes bankrupt and they never come back, and that's just the end of my money. I just lose my money, and it's something that is on my mind. However, there is another reason why I think Delta Airlines are going to be fine in the long run. And granted, the argument I'm about to make could be very flawed in, the way I'm thinking, and as I said, I could be wrong. Everything in this video I said, I can be wrong. I could lose my money with Delta Airlines, but long term, I feel I'll be okay. But the final point I want to make with this whole Delta Airlines situation, and Warren Buffett sold 18% of his stake in the company, is that I feel there is a reason why Warren Buffett sold his shares in the company. And it's not because the company is going to go bankrupt and because Warren Buffett sees the company failing in the future. That's not what I think is the case. In fact, the reason I believe Warren Buffett sold off 18% of his shares in Delta Airlines is because it just so conveniently slips him under the 10% threshold of owning the company. And why is this significant? Why is it important that Warren Buffett is under 10% of ownership in the company? The reason for that is because by law, if you are a shareholder in a company and you are above the 10% threshold, you are required, once again, as I said, by law, to report any sort of trades that you make in that company. If you're buying shares of the company and you're above that 10% threshold, you have to report it. If you're selling above that 10% threshold, you have to report it. The reason this is bad for someone like Warren Buffett is because if he sees Delta Airline at a huge discount and he really wants to buy, he has to announce that he is going to buy before he actually does, which is a big problem because a lot of people follow the herd mentality in the stock market. They hear that someone like Warren Buffett is buying shares of Delta Airlines and they think to themselves, okay, if he's buying, I should start buying too. It's something that a lot of people call the Warren Buffett effect, where people hear that he's going to buy shares in a company and the company price goes up, and then because he wants to buy shares of the company, now he has to buy them at an increased price, not the initial price he wanted to buy them at a discount at. Perhaps Warren Buffett thinks that the stock price is going to drop even lower because of current situations, and he wants to buy shares of the company without having to report it by law. Or perhaps he just doesn't want that information public. Perhaps he sold off those shares because he just doesn't want people knowing when he's buying and selling stocks. It seems very convenient that he sold these shares in the company just to get right below that 10% margin. I feel it was a calculated move, and some people will say, oh my god, but he took so many losses when making that sell. Actually, it barely impacts his portfolio at all. The loss that he took with that sell is nothing compared to the profits he's made over his entire investing career. So as I said, I think this is a calculated sell. Yes, he is taking some loss, but there is a reason for that. It's because he wants to be under that 10% margin so that he doesn't have to report his buys and his sells. Now, let's say that this isn't the case. Let's say that Warren Buffett isn't trying to go below 10%. Let's say that he is actually selling because he thinks the company is going to go downhill. Well, I ask you this. If Warren Buffett thinks that the company is going to go bankrupt and that they're going to go downhill for the foreseeable future and that they're not going to recover, Ask yourself this. Why did he only sell 18% of the company? If he genuinely thought the company was just doomed and there was no future for Delta Airlines, don't you think he would just sell off his entire shares of the company? Why would he only sell 18% if he thinks that the company is going to fail and that it's going to go bankrupt? It doesn't really make sense. The argument I'm making, as I said, can be very flawed, but that's kind of the way I'm thinking right now. I just personally believe Warren Buffett was trying to get under 10% of the overall holding of the company, and that he does believe the company in the long term will do very well, and I personally believe the same thing. I was a little bit worried when I heard this news, but then when you look into it, things start to make a lot more sense, and either way, I still think Delta Airlines are a very good company, so I'm not going to sell just because Warren Buffett decided to sell. That's a really dumb argument. I'm going to hold on to Delta Airlines, perhaps purchase more if the company price falls down to whatever I've set it to. I'm going to buy more, get more value for my money, and not follow the herd mentality, because a lot of people right now are selling just because Warren Buffett sold, which is really dumb. You shouldn't sell just because other people are selling. In fact, you should buy because other people are selling, and then you should sell when other people are buying. I'm going to say this one last time before I finish this video. I could be completely wrong, and I'm going to look back on this video in 5 years and I'm going to think to myself, God, he was a fucking idiot. He should have sold his shares and not taken the loss that he did. But I personally don't think that's how things are going to pan out. They very well could pan out like that, but I'm very confident in Delta Airlines that they're going to be fine in the long term, and you know, that's the aim of the game, focusing on the long term. That's pretty much all I had to say about this topic, so I'm gonna wrap this video up here. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you smack the like button. If you want to stay up to date with my content, please be sure to subscribe. I'll have my last video in the corner. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely make sure to check it out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.